Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Moralis Blueprints, in which we show you how to start your own Web3 development journey by building cool Web3 projects. And in this tutorial, we're going to build a Web3 Amazon clone using Next.js for building our app, Moralis and Firebase for authenticating, and the Ethers.js library for interacting with the Ethereum network and for sending transactions once purchasing a product. Now, before we dive into the video, let's take a look at this final product that we're gonna learn how to build together. And you've seen it run in the background. This is actually the clone. It's not the Amazon website itself. It looks pretty damn similar though. And I'm gonna show you how to add the carousel with the image right here and how to add and change, adapt these different items that we want to purchase on our clone, right? We're also gonna take a look at how to build this Amazon header, which looks pretty damn clean. We have the search function right here. We have the language settings drop down right here, the returns and orders, the cart, and the login button. That looks a little bit different to Amazon itself because this is a Web3 clone, right? We want to pop up MetaMask. So let's sign this login sequence, and then we see this turn into a sign out button instead, which means we are connected. So let's purchase some ETH tokens, right? Go to shop now, and we can see this product page looks very, very beautiful, very clean. We have the stars, we have the ratings, the description, obviously, and we have the buttons right here with beautiful hover effect. Let's buy now, okay? I'm gonna add my address right here, hit OK, and then we pop up MetaMask once again to sign this transaction. So what I've done in this clone, I've added my account 2 as the seller. So the transactions I'm gonna send will go to account 2. I'm signed in with account 1, so that's the buyer account for now. And let's confirm this transaction. Open up MetaMask again. And from here, we can see that this is pending, okay? Account 1 has 2.32 Goerli ETH. We have 2.94 here. And once this turns into a fully confirmed transaction, we're gonna see this populate with a few Goerli ETH because this transaction went through. And we can see it right here. It went up a little bit because this is a cheap item because it's a bear market. You know, Ethereum tokens aren't that expensive for now. But this is pretty cool. What's even cooler though is if we go to Firebase into our database and refresh this page, we can see this transaction in here, which means that we have the delivery address, the item that we purchased, and who purchased it. And from here, we can actually fulfill our orders. Guys, this is so cool, you can't imagine. Let's dive into this tutorial. I will show you step by step how to build this Amazon clone, connect your wallet, and have these purchased items stored into our database in Firebase. If this is interesting enough, stay tuned. In a few moments, I will show you how to build it. Hey, I'm Joseph, your Web3 instructor from Sweden. I've been into crypto since 2017 and have been building in the space since 2021. In my free time, I enjoy playing paddle, going to the gym, or hanging out with my dog. I always try to enjoy some good pancakes, but that's for another time. Now let's get back to the video. Alright, welcome back, and let's just get started. Now, to make this as easy as possible for you to tag along throughout this video, I have created a starter template folder. Inside YouTube tutorials / Moralis Firebase starter template, there's this Next.js application set up with Moralis and Firebase authentication. So make sure you clone this repo. It's gonna be linked in the description below, and you will have the same starting point as I have in this video, and you can just tag along as smoothly as possible. Now, inside this folder, in the README, we have this step-by-step guides for creating this project. So what I'm gonna do is, since this is the first step is create a Firebase project, I'm gonna have these two folders side to side so you can easily tag along with me. Like so, and I hope it will be clear and easy to view. But if you have any questions, if something is unclear to you, just make sure you post a comment in the section below and I will jump in and help you out. So let's start with the first step. Create a Firebase project. I'm gonna name it like so. And we don't need Google Analytics for this project. So let's just create it. Took about 30 seconds to a minute, so let's hit continue. And the next step is to upgrade to Blaze plan right here. So let's click right here, select plan, continue, type in a small amount. And there we have our Blaze plan. And the reason why we want to do this upgrade is because we're going to use the Secret Manager API, which require us to have the Blaze plan. With initial testing, you won't have to pay anything, but if your app gets lots of traction, you'd want to track your usage so you don't get any surprised costs. So let's close this one down and continue with activate the authentication feature in Firebase console. So let's go to Firebase console, to our project, we're already here, and then go to build authentication. So we should have build right here. Go to authentication and then hit get started. That's about it for step number 3. So step number 4 is create a web app and copy config for step 14. So let's go back to project overview and create our web app. And I'm going to call mine for testing. So let's register. And here we're getting the Firebase config that we're later on going to use in Visual Studio Code. So let's not copy this for the moment. Let's just click continue. We cannot be able to get that config later on, and I will show you how. So let's move on to step number 5 to generate a certificate for the service account. And we will need this in the next step as well. So let's go back to this side menu again and go to settings, project settings, and inside service accounts we should have a button down here, right here, to generate a new private key. So make sure you generate that one, and it's gonna download a JSON file that we will use to convert this certificate. And we're gonna do that inside this website. I'm gonna share the link in the description below. So make sure you choose the file that we just downloaded from Firebase. It will automatically generate the project ID, email, and private key for our project. And we're later on going to use these values inside our project in Visual Studio Code. So this was step number 6 to convert the certificate. So let's go on to clone this repo, which is the starter template I'm sharing in the description below. So make sure you clone that repo. I've cloned it myself, and what I did is I created a Moralis Amazon clone folder, and within that one I added the project from GitHub. And we will go through all the components, all the files in here, but first let's open up the terminal right here and continue with the steps from the GitHub README. So let's install Firebase CLI. And I've already done this, but if you haven't, copy this command right here and run that within this folder. Once you've done that, you can run the Firebase login, and it will pop up Firebase in the browser if you aren't logged in. Now I am logged in, so it's just displaying that I am right here. So we can go on to step number 10, which is we want to get the list of our projects in Firebase. So let's run Firebase projects : list, like so. And there we have the projects that I have in my Firebase. So this is the one that I'm gonna attach to this project. So let's copy the project ID from here. I've zoomed in quite a bit, that's why it looks a little bit weird maybe. But let's go to the bottom and continue with the next step, which is to set your project ID to this specific folder. So let's do Firebase use and then paste the ID we just copied, like so. And there we have it. Now we're using this project right here. I'm moving pretty quickly because this is short, easy steps, but if you have any questions, post them in the comment section below. For step number 12, let's copy this command right here to enable web frameworks feature and paste that in right here. Hit enter, and there we have it. And the next step, number 13, is to install the Authenticate with Moralis Web3 extension. So let's copy this command from here and paste that in. Choose Iowa US Central and then Google Cloud Secret Manager. Now I'm gonna leave this error in here because you might face this one as well. So make sure you go to this link. This is the Secret Manager API that it has not been used and it is probably disabled. So let's go to this link right here. And now let's enable the Secret Manager API. For some of you, this might already be enabled. If it is, make sure you disable it and then enable it again, wait a few minutes and then run the same command in here. Now, if it isn't enabled as it is for my project, let's enable it. This might take a few seconds, and once it's done, let's go back to our terminal and run the same command one more time. Click yes again. Let's choose Iowa US Central, Google Cloud Secret Manager, and this time we don't get the error. So it wants us to add our API key, our Moralis API key. So let's go to moralis.io and create your free account. If you don't have one already, make sure you do that. And once you've logged into your admin dashboard, go to Web3 APIs, and there we have the API key that we can copy. Go in here and paste that in. So you can see that input is hidden. So when I paste this in, you will see this space right here. It means I've pasted that in. Hit enter. And in here, we can type http://localhost. So now it wants us to add our project ID, which we get from this converter right here. So copy this field, paste that in. Then the email, which is right here. So I'm gonna make sure I'm copying that and paste that in as well. And then we're gonna choose Google Cloud Secret Manager once again. And now we're gonna enter our private key. Again, this input field is hidden. So once I paste this in, you're gonna see some jumping happening in here. And then we hit enter. And there we have it. So what are the next steps? We've just done this part. So now let's deploy our extension. So let's copy this command right here, which you also have right here. You can see that you can use Firebase deploy -- only extensions. So let's paste that in and hit enter. And just click yes on every question that's popping up. This might take a while. You can follow the process right here inside build. And if you go to extensions right here, you will see the progress of this installation. You can see this blue progress bar going around in a circle. Might take 3 to 5 minutes. So let's get back once this is done. I got an error for mine. If I see the details, it says that some extensions resources might not be deployed. So if you get this, just rerun the same command in the terminal one more time. If you don't get this, perfect, then you're set up. But if you get this, just make sure you run the same command one more time. Hit yes on all the questions, and that should be fine. And again, we can follow the process, the new process right here. And let's get back once this is done, and hopefully we won't get any errors and this extension will be deployed correctly. There we have it, the second time it went through, and we can go back to the README and see that we have the last step before we can run this locally, and it is to change the env.example and also add the variables that we created right here when we created the web app. So let's do that. Let's go to hosting and env.example. Let's rename this and remove that part and go back to our project overview. Open up our app and go into the settings. And if we scroll down, we can see the same config that we saw earlier when we created this web app. So let's copy this part right here. And we're gonna replace this replace me string with each and every value for from this Firebase config. So let's do that like this, and then we can just save this file and close it because we won't need to change anything in there again. Alright, so before we run this locally, let's actually install the dependencies if we haven't already. And let's go into hosting and run npm I to install all the libraries that we have in the package.json file. And then we can cd back one step and run this command right here to fire up our application. So let's do that. It takes a moment, but once it's done, let's go to localhost 5555 to see our application up and running. And there we have it. We can see the sign in button by MetaMask, and if we click that, it should pop up MetaMask like so, and we can sign this, and then we should see the wallet address that's connected and the sign out button right there. So this is a perfect starting point, and from here we can customize how the button looks, but also add the rest of the application in here and start creating the Amazon clone. Now let's put all our focus in Visual Studio Code, and I'm gonna close the terminal because we're not gonna need this one anymore. And let's have it full screen. Open up this tab right here, the Explorer, so we can easily have a good overview of the project. So we can see that once we deployed the extensions, once we run the application, we got a few files right here. We got the extensions folder and so on. And that you should have that as well. But let's focus on hosting, and let's start with the index.js page. So this will be our home component basically, and we will render other components from this one. And as you could see in the application, we have the login button to connect our MetaMask. We won't have it in this component, we will have it in our header instead. So we can remove parts that apply to that specific functionality. For example, sign in with Moralis, we don't need it in this file. We can also remove these two imports right here, the sign in and sign out functionality, because that's gonna be in the header section and not in this main page. And then we can remove these two variables as well. So what we want to do now is to add some styling. So we can import the home.module.css file, and we're not gonna focus too much on the styling and on the CSS, but I have a file, I've created the classes, we're gonna use the classes inside our application. I want this tutorial to be focusing on the Web3 part mostly, and not on the styling, but you will have that file to take a look at it if you want so through the link to this repo in the description below. And we can also remove the button itself from here and instead add the three components we want to render, which is header, subheader, and main, like so. And let's import them as well there. And I'm also gonna make this a section and give it the class name styles.container. Finally, let's just add a new title right here, call it Web3 Amazon clone. Perfect, that's about it for the index page. Now let's start by creating these three components right here. So let's close this one and start with header. So let's create a new file inside the components folder called header.js. We're going to use links and images, so let's import that from Next.js. So, and also the image. Then let's add some styling again. So let's import the same file in this component as well. Let's also import useState. I'm gonna add it above styling. Like so. And then we're gonna import these two components right here. And let's do it like so. What these two components do is they take the data, the config we added previously right here from the env file, and they basically set up the authentication process with Firebase to make it easy for us to authenticate using the button later on that we're gonna add inside the header component. Let's continue inside header component, and I'm gonna import two images. I have inside the public folder created an assets folder, and within that one I have some assets, so some images for the items that we can purchase. We have the flag for the language settings, for example, and then we have some images for the carousel. So this will also be linked in the description below, so you can use those images if you want to. I'm gonna import logo and USA, the flag itself. And then we can create the export function. And since we're gonna have the login button here instead of index, we can basically paste the same code we had there. So these variables and these two functions, the sign in and sign out functions. And what we do here from the use Firebase file, we take auth and Moralis auth, the function that we exported inside this file. And from here we can get the current user that's logged in and display their MetaMask wallet, for example. And these are the functions we're gonna call when we click the button. So if we're not connected, we're gonna call this function, and if we are connected, we're gonna obviously call the sign out button. So let's create a return statement right here, add the first section, and we're gonna give it a class name like so. We're gonna do styles.header. Let me zoom in one step, and we're gonna create another section like so, give it another class name. This time we're gonna give it styles.header_box like this. And the first thing we want to have inside this section is a link. It's gonna be the logo itself. So the logo is the image and the image is gonna be a link. So let's add this link to just the /, which is the home page, and then let's add image. And we're gonna have logo there, which is the one we imported right here. And we can give it some alt text, just logo image for now, and then width like so. Let's do 110, and height let's do 30 right here. Let's remove this closing tag. We're gonna close it like this. It's gonna be a self-closing tag, and save this, and let's see how it looks right here. We have like this, so it's centered, it's in the middle, and it shouldn't. So let's go back and see. We have bow instead of box. Obviously that's the typo. There we have it, much better. So let's continue from here instead. The second thing we want to add inside the header box is the search functionality, which is an input field, and the button itself. So let's add that below this closing link tag, and we see we have this SVG, which is the magnifying glass for the button, and above that we have the input field that has some styling to it as well. But if I save this and go back to the browser, we can see the input field right here. Looks pretty good already. We have the button and the hover effect. We can type some search text right here. So that looks pretty good on its own, but it takes up the whole space. That's because we haven't added anything to the right of it. So let's continue by doing that. So below this section, let's add another section. Give that a class name of styles.headerinfo, like so. And within this header info component or section, we want to add the rest of the things we have inside the header, which are the language settings. We have the login button, we have the returns orders button, and then we also have the cart itself. So let's start by adding the language section, and it's gonna look like this. So we have two classes, CSS classes for this, which we add like so. Then we have the image USA, we have the en text, and then also the arrow that has some styling to it as well. And below this section, that's where we want to add the login button. So the login button is gonna have some functionality, obviously. And the first thing we want to do is to check this current user variable. Now, if this is true, if this holds any value, it's gonna be the display name, and we want to show that. But that also means that a user is connected. And if this isn't true, then a user isn't connected. So let's add that down here. like so. So we check if this isn't undefined, then we're gonna render a button with some styling and an on-click function to sign in by MetaMask, and then we're gonna have the text login. Otherwise, we're gonna render another button with the same styling but with an on-click handle to sign out function and with the text sign out. So let's save this and see how that looks like. There we have it. So I'm already connected, so it's a sign out. If I disconnect, we have a login. So if I log in, we pop up MetaMask and I can sign this, and this turns into a sign out button like so. Pretty cool. Now let's add the rest of the header items and create a new section with another class name. Like so. And within this one, let's create two paragraphs, one with the text returns and the second one like this. And then the last section for this header. And in here, let's add the cart, which is an SVG. And then below that one, let's add a paragraph with the text cart. So here we added the returns and orders and then the cart itself, basically. So let's save that and see how it looks in the browser. And there we have it. So something's wrong here with the styling. Let's see what that is all about. I see we have two R's here, so let's remove one. So I had a typo right here on this styling, but also I've added some variables here in the global CSS for this, which is a default class basically, and then for body and HTML, which makes our application look like this instead. So we have this aligned perfectly with the rest of the menu. As you can see, I'm leaving the small kind of errors that we had in the beginning in the terminal when we installed Firebase and the extensions, and these small issues with the alignment, I'm leaving them in this tutorial so you can see that this kind of stuff actually happened, but also I'm leaving them inside this tutorial so you can see that if you get the same errors or have the same issues, you can see how I solved them and then understand them better. Now we've finished with the header and it looks pretty damn cool. So let's add a subheader that's gonna be below this main header, and we're gonna have some categories here on the left side of it. So let's go inside Visual Studio Code, and I'm gonna create a new component inside the components folder. Let's call it Subheader.js. And the first thing we want to do is to import some styling. After that, let's create our export default function called Subheader, like so. Add a return, and then inside add a section with the class name of styles.subheader, like so. This section is gonna contain all the data for this subheader. So let's do another section that's gonna contain the rest of the things, and then inside this one a new section with the class name of styles.allCategories, like so. You will see when we're finished with this subheader, but this all categories section is gonna contain just one part of the subheader, which is 3 lines and then the all text, and then the rest of the items will be in its own. So you're gonna understand what I mean, but let's create another section first that's gonna contain the 3 lines, and we're gonna give this the class name of menu bars, like so. Inside the lines will be an SVG, so I'm gonna import that like so, and then just minimize this to make things easier for us. And then below this section, let's add a paragraph with the text all and save this. Finally, we want to add the rest of the menu items for the subheader, and it's gonna be outside this all categories container, as we said before. So below this closing tag, let's add all the paragraphs. They're all gonna have the same class names, but different texts. And let's save this and go back to the browser to see how it looks like. We can't see anything because I commented them out inside the index.js file earlier. So let's uncomment that part and that part, save. And again, we probably have some styling typos. So let's go back, and I can immediately see I have a capital S right here. So change that one and then go back, and there we can see how good it looks. And we have this border around the lines and the all categories item, and then we have the rest of the items displayed like so. This is very beautiful. So now let's move on to create the main component, which will contain all the data that is displayed on this white space right here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna close these components right here and create a new component called main.js. So this is gonna be like a holder for other components, and we're doing this to have a better structure of our project. So let's first of all import React like so, then add some styling. Then we're gonna import the two components that we want to display in here. One will be the carousel component. We haven't created those, so don't worry. Like so. And then we're gonna have the landing page like so. Create the default function that we're gonna export right here called main section with the class name of styles.main. Let's do another section with no class, and from here we're gonna render both components. So the first one being carousel like so, and that's basically the carousel we see with the images in the background going round and round. And then the second component will be landing page, which will contain everything else. So let's save. Now we haven't created these ones yet, so I'm gonna comment them out to not get any errors like so. And let's start by creating carousel. So another component in the components folder called carousel.js. And the carousel we're gonna use is from a library that we need to install. So let's go into the hosting folder and do npm I and d. So at design, they're gonna provide us with this carousel that we can use in our application. Perfect. Now minimize this like so. We can do import. We're gonna need, as we said, carousel like this. We can import image because we're gonna use these to add our images, and then also the styling file. So the next things we want to import are the images for the carousel. We have them inside public, assets, and then carousel, these three right here. So let's do that like so. We're gonna create const carousel we're gonna create an array called carousel that contains all these three images to easily map through this array and then display each image for each animation of the carousel. Now let's create the export function. Like so, and then we're gonna return a section with the class name of styles.carousel like so. Now let's add this carousel component that we got from ant design. It's gonna be autoplay. We're gonna set dots to false like so. And inside this one, we're gonna map through the carousel variable like this, and we're gonna return and the image for each and every iteration of this array. And set the height to 650 like so. Then we can go into main and remove these comments right here and not get any error. Perfect. So let's continue with the landing page. So let's close this one and create a new component right here called landing page.js. And let's start by importing image. and link. And also some styling. Then we're gonna have to import all the images for each and every item that we want to sell on our homepage. Like so, and then create the export default function called the landing page. And another section with the class name. Like so. So in here we want to create this layout that had 3 columns basically with image on each and every one of them, and then some text as well where you can click shop now or explore more. So let's continue and do that. We're gonna have another section. Like so. So this is one of the previous sections where we have a paragraph like a title. For example, for the books, explore books, we have the image of the books, and then we also have the preview action, which is see more in this case. So I'm gonna go on and create these for all the items that we have on our home page. So make sure you just follow along and let's do this together. Like so, I've pasted those in right there, and we can see that they all look the same. So we have books image, we don't have a width or a height number, and then preview image, class name, we have the paragraph with the action right here. All of them look the same. As you can see, fitness image, preview action, and so on and so on, besides one. So we've added a link to this ETH token because that's the one we want to demonstrate how to do a purchase with. But eventually, if you want to have the same functionality, you will need to add this link right here for each and every one of them. So instead of having a paragraph with a class name preview action, we have a link with the same class name. And this links to the page product, which we can create inside pages folder. So let's do that. Product.js is what we're gonna call it. Let's start by importing a few things. So head from next/head, like so, some styling, and then 3 components that we're gonna render inside the product page. And since this page is pretty similar to the index, the home page itself, because it's gonna include the header and the subheader, we can include those components like we did in the index page and display them on this page as well. So let's import header, import subheader, and we're also gonna import a component called product comp, which we haven't created yet. So we're gonna go on and create that one after we've done this page. Then create the export default function, like so. Add the section, and give it the class name styles.container, like so. Then we can create this head section, and we can give it a title, Web3 Amazon clone. The same way we did inside the index.js page, basically. Lastly, let's do a main holder right here to add the imported components, like so. That's subheader as well. And lastly, the product component. Great, now let's move on and actually create this component right here. But before we go on and do that, we can go into index.js and uncomment the main component right here. And we should actually be able to see all of the things we have created. So we have the carousel in the background, and then we have these different items that you can see right here that we can purchase. And we created this link right here. So for now, we're getting this error because we haven't created this component yet, and that's what we're gonna do next. So inside components folder, let's create a new one called product.comp.js. And let's get going by importing a few things that we're gonna use in here. Let's start with image, like so. Let's import use state. We're going to need to import model, which is from Ant Design, and this is gonna be the pop-up model. Once we click the buy now button, we get a pop-up model, and this is the one. Then we're gonna import Ethers, and we need this because we want to send transactions using Ethers library. So let's continue and import use Firebase. And here what we need to import is a few things from Firestore, because we want to create a new collection, and when a purchase is happening, we want to send that data inside our Firestore database so we can fulfill our orders. So we will need to import get Firestore collection and add doc, like so. And we're gonna take those from Firebase/Firestore, like this. Then let's also import app from our Firebase file, like so. Let's move this one step up so these are below each other. And lastly, let's import the styling, like so. And then we will also need the ETH token image, and this is inside public assets, and we're gonna have the ETH token.jpg. Now let's go on and create our export default function, product comp, like so. We're going to need a few variables. I'm gonna explain them once we go through them one by one. This auth from Firebase, it's because we want to add who purchased the item, and that's what we're gonna need in the collection later on inside Firebase. Let's do const, because this is gonna let us control if the model is visible or not, like so. I'm gonna start by having it as false, and actually it's not gonna be a string, it's gonna be a boolean value, like so. Then we're going to need another use state variable. This will be called delivery, and set delivery as its state function, and this is gonna be an empty string for now. Next, we want to set the seller's address, and in this case it's gonna be my account to, as I showed you in the example in the beginning of this video. So let's call this variable to address and paste that in. Obviously you can change this to your own, so you can try it out. And then we're gonna add the price, it's gonna be 9.99, like so. Then let's create database like so from get firestore. Gonna pass along our app that we got from the Firebase file. This includes the config, the Firebase config data that we have in our env file. So that's gonna be needed. Then we can do db instance like so. I'm gonna have a collection like so. I see I have a typo right here, like so. But what we do here is that we're naming our collection, we're giving it the name purchase. Just to make it easier for us inside Firebase to distinct that this is actually a purchase, and from there we can fulfill the orders. So let's move on and create a function, get delivery address, like so. So this is gonna make sense later on because we want to call this function later on when a user clicks buy now, we pop up the model, and then in there you can add your address that we're gonna deliver to, and this function is gonna get called once we do that. We're also gonna have a handle OK function like so, and this will run once the user clicks OK. So basically you click buy now, we pop up a model, you input your address, and then you hit OK, and that's when we're gonna run this, and that means you have purchased, and we're also gonna send this transaction into Firebase. But let's add the functionality after we have created what we will render inside this page. So instead, let's create the return right here, and we will have a section with the class name styles main like so, and another section with another class name product container like so. So for this product page we want three things basically. On the left side we want to have the image, in the middle we want to have the product information, and then on the right hand side we want to have this small box where you can purchase the item. So let's start with creating the image section first, and that's gonna contain an image obviously. It's gonna be the ETH token that we imported above. Let's add some alt text. Width 600 and height 600 as well. And it's gonna be a closing, self-closing image tag like so. Let's add this title right here, and then a paragraph with the class name styles.visit store like so. And it's gonna have the text visit the crypto store. And inside this product stars section, we want the stars itself. So, and they are SVG. So I'm gonna import them like this, but I'm gonna minimize them like so, one by one. There we have 4 stars for this specific item. Let's minimize this component or this section as well and continue with the next one. So we're going to have another paragraph, the class name styles.rating with the text. So for this example, we have 512 ratings on this item. So this is the top of the product info section. We're gonna have all the about information in this upcoming section that I'm gonna create right now, but I'm gonna paste that in because it's quite a lot of text. We can go through it though. So here is where we have the import fees and shipping that we just added. And then we have this about this item section. So we're creating an unordered list with list items with this kind of text that describes this item basically. And that's it. So the next section will be the purchase section on the right side. So let's create a section with the class name styles.product purchase section, like so. Let's add the price once again right here. So we have the same text here as above, but we have different class names for those. And then let's create another section with the class name styles.stockform, like so. And here you will have the opportunity to add like the quantities that you want to purchase. So we're gonna have a label with the class name label, like so. We're gonna add this right here, and the text is gonna be in stock. So, and below this, we want to have an input field with the class name so it's gonna be type text. Let's give it the ID of input field, name, so I'm gonna add the max length. I'm gonna put it at 120 characters, but obviously you can have like 1 or 2 or 3 because we're only gonna add the amount of quantity. I'm gonna have a placeholder like so, and then we can have this as required. Perfect, and there we have it. And now let's add the purchase buttons. So we're gonna have to create another section with the class name styles.purchase buttons, like so. And let's do the first button, the class name dot add to cart with the text add to cart, like so. And the second button will have the buy now class, like so. And we're actually gonna add an on-click function to this one. And it is gonna be the set is modal visible. So what this does is basically it just sets this state variable right here to true, and that means that we will display the modal. And this text will be by now, like so. And the last part of this purchase section is gonna be this secure transaction that we display that this is a secure transaction, and eventually it can be a link to a page with more information about that one. Now let's create that section right here and give it the class name of styles.secure transaction, like so. So first of all, we want to have a lock. That's gonna be an SVG, so let's add that part, like so. And then we want to have this text that says secure transaction, like this. And the last thing we want to render is the modal itself. So I'm gonna paste that in right here. And let's go through that. So first we initialize the modal. We set the title to purchase product. It's only gonna be open once this is true, which we're setting by clicking this button right here. And it's gonna have an on OK function, which means when you hit OK, we're gonna run this handle OK, and if you click cancel, then we're gonna set it to false basically. And it's gonna have the width of 600. What do we want to include in here in the model? So we want to have the image of the ETH token, we want to have the title, and we want to have the input field once again, but this time it's gonna be for the delivery address. So we're adding a label and the input field the same way we did above. And that's about it basically. So now let's go on and create this handle OK function right here. So let's start by initializing this provider by Ethers. So we will be able to send transactions, and let's do new Ethers providers.web3 provider. Like so. This is gonna be an async, by the way. And we're using the get signer, which will give us an object of the Ethereum account that's connected, but we're getting a message right here that it couldn't find Ethers. Let's go up where we imported it and we missed the S right there. So that should solve this small issue. Let's go on and create a transaction variable right here. So we're gonna use the signer and the dot send transaction method, and we're gonna pass along an object. We're gonna have the to address like this, and we're also gonna have a value to it. And we're gonna, to get the value, we're gonna do something different. So we're gonna use the Moralis NodeJS SDK to get to use the API to get the current price of what ETH is. But in order for us to do that, we need to create the backend server. So before we do that, let's add the code that we will have in here. So we're gonna use utils and parse ether. We're gonna add the price divided by, this is gonna be the price of an ether. And we're gonna make it to string like so. And once this is done, let's add this doc to our database inside Firebase. And the first parameter will be the DB instance. And the second one will be an object with the data itself. So let's add purchased by, and we're gonna use auth that we initialized up here from Firebase. We're gonna add the delivery address. And we're also gonna add the product that was purchased, which was the ETH token. Like so. And once we've done this, we just want to close the model itself. So let's set this value to false again. And this is all we need for the front end. So we're gonna change this eventually. So let's move on to create the backend first, and then make sure we add this value right here. But if we go to our browser, everything should look as it should, like we see right here. The design is there, the layout is perfect, and we have the buttons. So if we click buy now, we should get the model, but it's not popping up. So something might be wrong. So let's go back and see where we run this function right here. It should be, or actually let's take a look at the button that should pop up the model right here, and we can see that this should be set to true, like so. Let's go back, refresh, and try this now, and there we have it. So we can see the model popping up, we can see the image, the title, the price, and then here we can add our address, and then we should hit OK and make the purchase. But before we can do that, we need to get the price right here from our backend server. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and open up the terminal. and create a backend folder. And then install a few dependencies. We're gonna need .env, Moralis, and Express, like so. And we can minimize this once it's done and open up the backend folder right here. We can actually create a .env file, and we're gonna add our Moralis API key right here, which we can get from going to moralis.io and signing into our admin dashboard. Go to Web3 APIs and make sure we copy it from here. Like so. Next, let's create an index.js file. And it's gonna be an Express server. So let's require Express. Let's run it on port 5001. Let's also require .env. So then we can get our Moralis API key from our env file. So let's do process.env.moralis. I think that's what we called it. And then we can do a get request to /ETH token. And try to make the request to moralis.evm api.token.get token price. And we're gonna pass along an object. We're gonna add the address and also the chain. Now we haven't declared these variables yet, so let's do that first. We can do it in here. We're gonna do a const address. So, and the const chain. So, and we can add 0x1, which is the ETH hash ID, and then the address of Ethereum itself. And once we get the response back, we can actually return it to our frontend client like this. Then we can add a catch. So if we get an error, we want to catch that error, so we can just console log it. Let's say that like so, like something went wrong. And let's display the error as well. And we can also return that is 400. The last thing we need to do is to initialize Moralis like so. We're gonna pass along our API key. And then we want to listen to our port. So we're gonna do app.listen. Like so. Now we can close index.js and let's go to the top and import another library. We're gonna import Axios like so. And we can also add use effect right here. And then add another use state variable right here. So we're gonna add const USD price and then set USD price equals to use state, and we will have a 0 inside there. Then we want to add the use effect. So let's do it right here. like so. So within the use effect, we're gonna call the get price method, which is right here. And we're gonna do a get request using Axios to our backend server on port 5001 and on /ETH token endpoint, which is the one we created in our backend server. Once we get the response back, we're gonna set the USD price to response.data.usd price, and we're gonna add a toFixed method with 2 as a parameter, which means we only want 2 decimals in this USD price. So once we have that, we can copy this and we can go down to the handle OK function right here, where we add the price like so. Hit save, and we can start our backend server. I've already done that, so open up another terminal and make sure you run npm run start in there and have the client running as well, like we can see here. So minimize this, go back to the browser, reload the page. Fingers crossed, now this should work. So let's click buy now, add our address, so my address number 2 for example, hit OK. Pop up MetaMask, so we have account 1 right here, we have account 2 right there. Confirm. Let's see what's happening. Confirm. We had some gas price changes probably. We have this as pending. We can see the amounts right here. So we want to see some more Goerli ETH right here in a few seconds. And there we have it. Took a few seconds. We see that it's not pending anymore. We see that we have a little bit more than before. And let's go into Amazon and reload, because this is the first purchase after we created this collection. And there we have it. My address number 2 ETH token, that's what we purchased, and we have the purchase by wallet address. That's amazing, guys. Look how clean this looks, and it works exactly as we want to. So I hope you enjoyed this fantastic video creating a Web3 Amazon clone, and I hope I will see you in the next Moralis Blueprints video.